Part 29. After Rebirth, Boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, Beautiful. Chapter 281. Chapter 281 finally consummated. Susu. Looking at Qin Jiao, who appeared in front of him like a magic trick, Yunsu smiled guiltily. Qin Jiao walked up to her with a cold face and hugged her into his arms. Do you want to scare me to death? Yunsu patted him on the shoulder comfortingly. You know, I never do anything I'm not sure about. Qin Jiao buried his face in her shoulder, covering up the boundless darkness in his eyes. He was full of fear. Even though he knew that Yunsu was very skilled and no one could hurt her easily, he still felt afraid. Promise me, there won't be a next time. Okay, I promise you. Sensing Qin Jiao's uneasy mood, Yunsu said warmly. The group of people returned to China on the second day, and the rest of the things were not their concern. Meng En, who had let Yunsu and Jeffrey go, was restless and was preparing to look for the next opportunity when he received news of the purge of the Stewart family from above. He and his people fled in a hurry, but he was still caught. The things he had committed over the years were listed one by one and sent to court. He finally had to pay the price for his mistakes. You should look up to such an outstanding person. She is really amazing. Ren Xianxian did not understand the meaning of her words. So many people like her. Yunyan repeated the sentence softly and asked, Xianxian, do you like her too? Yunyan, who was wearing a white dress next to her, looked at her coldly when she heard this, with madness in her eyes. Ren Xianxian was startled by her look. Yunyan lowered her eyes, hiding the boundless malice in her eyes. Xianxian, let's go that way. She pointed to a dark alley. Yunsu, who started to be busy again after returning to China, didn't care at all. She had just finished an experiment and looked at the calendar on the side. She suddenly thought of something, picked up a pen and circled a date on it. That day was coming soon. Over there. Ren Xianxian hesitated. Ren Xianxian walked towards the alley. Behind her, Yunyan slowly took out a utility knife from her bag. All right. It doesn't matter. We can take a shortcut over there. What about the two of us? What are we afraid of? She had a sinister smile on her face. Yunyan, who was full of boundless hatred, said softly, Xianxian, do you really think she is very good? Ren Xianxian saw the big screen upstairs, which was showing news about Yunsu's new research. There is no surveillance there, and there are often gangsters there who rob and collect protection fees. Ren Xianxian walked into the alley without noticing, and Yunyan behind her raised the utility knife high. Xiaoyan, I really think your sister is quite good. Don't be so hostile to her, Ren Xianxian said suddenly, thinking that she was sincere. Over this period of time, some of Yunsu's experimental results have been gradually announced. Her fame and reputation are getting higher and higher, and she is now a genius scientist sought after by the whole people. That's right, Ren Xianxian nodded without thinking, she is so good and so many people like her. Did you have any misunderstandings about her before? You are sisters born on the same day and month of the same year. Xiaoyan, what's wrong with you? Yunyan also caught a glimpse of it, and there was deep resentment in her eyes. The more outstanding and dazzling Yunsu was, the more she wanted to tear her into pieces. It would be best if she no longer existed in this world. Lanchinge, on the eve of the college entrance examination, the number 1 middle school had just finished school, and two girls were walking side by side, talking about something. So many people like that bitch, and so do you. Didn't you say she is my best friend? Want to be lifelong friends? How can you like her? In this case, I can only ask you to shut up. Xiaoyan, ah. Ren Xianxian, who suddenly turned around, looked at the shining utility knife, her pupils shrank, she screamed subconsciously, and closed her eyes. The expected pain did not come, and instead Ren Xianxian heard Yunyan's painful cry. Ah! Who are you? Let me go. Yun Yan's hands seemed to be welded by iron pliers, unable to move. The man who grabbed her hand sneered, "Intentional murder, call the police immediately." Ren Xianxian, who was already stunned, only reacted when she heard the man's voice. Tears welled up in her eyes, and they rolled down in large pieces, covering her whole body. Trembling, "Xiao Yan, why are you doing this? Bitch, let me go." Yun Yan saw that Ren Xianxian could no longer conceal her malice. "Who told you to talk to that bitch?" "Is it because of this?" Ren Xianxian said in disbelief. "Yun Yan, you are so scary. You are a devil." He wants to kill her just because of a few words. This kind of person is so terrible. What nonsense are you talking to her about? Call the police. The man became impatient. Call the police? What to call the police? Yun Yan suddenly calmed down. Who saw me hurt her? Besides, she wasn't hurt, but it was you. I'm going to sue you for intentional injury. The man looked at her strangely and pointed behind her. Don't you know there is surveillance behind you? What? Yun Yan turned around suddenly. How could there be surveillance in this place? It had never happened before, otherwise she wouldn't be able to attack Ren Xianxian here with confidence. Ren Xianxian had seen through her face and called the police without any hesitation. No matter how much Yun Yan begged for mercy, she ignored her. The police arrived at the scene quickly and took the three people back. The witnesses and physical evidence were conclusive, and Yun Yan's excuses were useless. She was committing a serious intentional homicide. After recording the confession, the man left the police station. He took out his mobile phone and sent a message. Yun-soo from the capital city saw the news and chuckled, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Sure enough, Yun-yan would still do such a thing. On the same day and in the same place, no matter what the reason, she would still attack Ren Xianxian. In the last life, Ren Xianxian died tragically, and she became Yun Yan's scapegoat. She had already sent people to follow Yun Yan, just to save Ren Xianxian at this moment. In this life, she has reversed the outcome. After receiving the news, Yun Tu and Su Ziyuling remained silent for a long time. They did not even go to the police station. They directly announced to the outside world that Yun Yan had nothing to do with the Yun family anymore. In this life, she became the abandoned child of the Yun family. Yun Daejin still knew the news. He remained silent for many days, but still did not go to see Yun Yan. Yun Su, on the other hand, came back from the capital specifically and saw Yun Yan. She had already been sentenced for intentional injury and sentenced to 7 years in prison. Yun Yan thought it was her family members who came to see her, and her excited face distorted the moment she saw Yun Su. "What are you here for? Let's see the prisoners," Yun Su chuckled. At this moment, the seats of the two of them were completely reversed from the previous life. "Get out of here, you bitch, get out of here right away." Yun Yan stared at her fiercely as she scratched the glass. "I only regret that I didn't kill you. What a pity." Yun Su glanced at the guard at the door and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Yun Yan, why do you do this every time? Every time? What's the meaning?" Yun Yan's pupils trembled. What did she mean by this? "By the way, I forgot to tell you, I installed that surveillance camera." She only moved her mouth and made no sound for the last few words, but Yun Yan understood them. Ah! Yun Yan's eyes were splitting. She installed a surveillance camera. Would she have known where she would attack Ren Xianxian? Why is that? Why? Yun Yan suddenly reacted. She yelled wildly. "Bitch, you're going to die a good death. Even if I become a ghost, I will curse you in hell." Yun Su watched leisurely as the crazy Yun Yan was pulled down by the guards. She walked out of the prison. There was a blue sky and white clouds outside. She squinted her eyes. In her previous life, she was inside and the clouds were outside. But this time she was outside and the clouds were inside. From this moment on, it is her truly new life. 2 years later, Yoon-soo completed all her credits and graduated early. On the day of graduation, the man who had always been dignified and self-sufficient knelt on one knee in front of her and raised the sacred ring. As a result, Yoon-soo put on the ring, and Chin Jiao was almost beaten to death by the furious Yoon Daejin. After that, Chin Jiao spent a lot of effort before finally getting his approval. Yoon-soo entered a research institute after graduation and concentrated on the research she had always wanted to do. Countless advanced scientific research results of later generations were brought to the modern world by her. She changed the world and this era step by step. Her legend has been told by countless people. Her achievements will go down in history. End of this chapter.